Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Libby Murray, and you are joining us for one of Lifetime Adoption's webinars. I am pleased to welcome tonight a woman who chose adoption for her son at his birth 4 years ago. We will welcome Hollie on here in just a moment, but I wanted to go over briefly how you can reach out to us. What I think is cool about tonight's webinar is that we have a mixed audience, so it will really actually spark a lot of different kind of participation and questions that maybe we don't get when the audience is, only geared towards adoptive parents. But we have joining us tonight any range of people just thinking about adoption, and I know there's people on the call tonight who aren't necessarily thinking about adoption for themselves directly, but they have a daughter or a friend who's pregnant and facing a decision about that baby. That there's also family members on here who are looking for information about helping a couple who's been trying to conceive and they're not having luck building their family yet, all the way down to we actually have women that we're currently in touch with who are thinking about adoption and that are going through different phases with us at Lifetime through the research, through looking at the families waiting to adopt, and maybe going through some of the counseling or just taking their time to decide how they want things to go. And then, of course, we're happy to see so many adoptive parents, hopeful adoptive parents here tonight who are in different stages as well. Some of you might be thinking, well, now I'm just trying to decide who's going to help us connect with our child's birth mother. And then there may be others of you on there thinking, well, I'm just glad to be here and spend the time that I'm waiting to be chosen already as part of Lifetime's program to just educate myself and become more informed and to better understand the other side that my child's birth mom will eventually, potentially go through and think about and face. So I'm just so glad to have all of you here just learning more about this, this whole concept of open adoption, and I just want to welcome you all. Kim, why don't you talk about how people can connect with us and get more information or just learn more about adoption through Lifetime's pages?
Yes. Well, my name is Kim King, and I'm one of the adoptive family coordinators here at Lifetime. And I'm here to just be a support to Libby as she carries this conversation with Hollie, as Hollie shares about her personal experience with all of us. And I wanted to let you guys know that you can actually, well, of course, you can always visit us online at lifetimeadoption.com. So we have a variety of resources there for anyone at any stage in their exploration, no matter what point of view they're coming from. We also have a variety of conversations ongoing, new information shared on a daily basis, great insight from all those touched by adoption on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/open.adoption. So I encourage you to like and share that page because you never know who might need that information, and you could inspire and encourage them along their way, especially with accurate information. Another thing that you can do if you have some questions and want to speak with someone right now, especially if you are considering adoption for a child, if you're in a pregnancy where you're not sure what your plans are and you want to think about adoption, you can reach us 24/7 on our toll-free hotline, which is 1-800-923-6784. So that's 1-800-923-6784. And you can also visit our website, lifetimeadoption.com, and chat with us online. So if you see that there's someone available to chat with you online, that would be an easy way to open up a conversation and get the basic information you're looking for as you consider all your options. And for adoptive parents, prospective adoptive parents, of course, you probably know you can reach us Monday through Friday Regular business hours are generally 8 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 530-432-7373. And of course, if you're a family in an impending adoption plan and you need to reach us right away, just call the hotline.
Good point.
So anyway, Libby, back to you.
Okay. So I typed in a lot of that information. If you're joining us online, you might have saw a bunch of links and some information come through in case you needed that in front of your nose right now. But I just want to get right to our story tonight. I want to welcome Holly. I was blessed. I'll give you a little back history. It was probably about a month ago, maybe a little longer, but I was commenting actually with Diane, one of our birth mother coordinators, last night, how remarkable it is to just see the interactive community going on our Facebook page, and that you never quite know who's watching the posts or whose brain is turning when they see certain comments, and I feel like it's a blessing to have all of your input, but when I see a woman that we've helped through an adoption plan as a birth mother, when birth mothers actually chime in, I feel like because there's not as much of that input coming in that it stands out, and Holly's voice stood out, and I reached out to her and I just asked her, you know, how do you feel about sharing your story, and she was excited, and the more that I've messaged with her and spoke with her, the more I just know that you will also be blessed by her story and her insights tonight. And again, that we want to welcome your questions, because open adoption it's a little bit tricky to understand until you know exactly what you want and how you want it to go, and then until you know the exact people that are going to be involved in that plan. And so I think tonight, through Holly's story, you will be able to see even a little bit more of the potential that could be in your own adoption plan, but also to just even have better awareness that there are all kinds of different adoptions going on and that they can all be a positive experience. And to hear from her heart, you know, where she wishes more people would go as far as awareness or education, just to better understand how people come to adoption and why it's a good option to consider. So, Holly, I just want to thank you for joining us tonight. I know you have your hands full with a baby that didn't go down, but we're just really appreciative to have you and your story here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Now, on the screen, I'm going to pull up here because you were gracious enough to send us some photos of actually all of your kiddos. Why don't we talk a little bit just about you know, what was going on in your life at the time you found out you were pregnant with your son Jordan, who is the son you chose adoption for. What led you to start thinking about adoption?
Well, initially, when I found out I was pregnant, I knew I couldn't afford another kid. I couldn't do it. I was working a part-time job, staying with my mother. So when I found out I was pregnant, it really like blew the door open on everything that was going on. And I was a single mom, staying with my mom, and the dad had left. It wasn't ideal. So
yeah,
it was either adoption or adoption, because I don't believe in abortion.
Okay, so, and just in case anyone's confused, you know, Holly had a son when she became pregnant again, and she was living at her mom's. And when you were saying that the father left, you mean the father of Jordan, your second son,
yes,
right?
Yes, the father of Jordan. I was still in contact with Elijah's dad because, you know, he was still in his life. But Jordan's father, he had left. He moved to another state.
Okay, wow. So how...
Hey, quick question.
Sure.
Oh, maybe you were going to ask it, Libby, but I was just curious how far along you were when you found out.
I was going to ask that.
Libby, stop it.
Actually, how I found out, I actually had a cyst on one of my ovaries, so I had to go to the emergency room, and I found out I was pregnant there, and I was 6 weeks along.
So then, did you go home and tell people right away that you were pregnant again, or did you kind of keep it to yourself?
No, I was in shock because I was on birth control, and to find out, I'm sorry. He's,
You know, it's more common than people think that unplanned pregnancies occur when the person was on birth control.
give me a moment, please.
Sure.
David.
Well, and just so that those of you on the call aren't confused, Hollie's life has changed a lot in 4 years, and she's now married, and she is raising the son she had at the time when she gave birth to Jordan, but she also just gave birth literally a few weeks ago. So she's been married for a few years. So she's juggling a little bit of tonight, but she really wanted to come on. I gave her a chance to give more time, but she was excited to share. So you there, Hollie?
Yeah, I think he's only 3 weeks old now, right?
I think so,
Or
yes. So, and for those of you on the call who might, you know, maybe get a little curious, oh, I love this. We had a comment come in right now, Kim. Thank you, Sean. It just says, you know, we have a whole village of prayer warriors behind us and our child's birth parents, and I know that that was a big part of what fed into Hollie's story, too, was her faith and prayer. But that also, like, I think I saw a post on Facebook earlier this week where it talked about, you know, that you never know what kind of prayer warrior you could be called to be for your child's birth parent, but also maybe for birth parents in general, that sometimes these women don't always have people looking out for them, and that it's an opportunity for you to just see that bigger picture. But let's see if Hollie's
And I was just looking online, too. I Googled, you know, failure rate of birth control, and it's contracept.org, and they have a little drop-down menu, and it says oral contraceptives, a birth control pill, a hormone pill taken by mouth, failure rate 8%. So
well, that's pretty high.
I mean, yeah, I don't think that's common knowledge.
Right.
8 out of 100, like 100 people standing in a room, 8, you know. Yeah, to me that's high.
Which, what I think is, I don't know, Kim, you and I both, we have worked with both sides, and no two stories are the same. That's what I continue to notice. I've been here almost 8 years, and whenever I talk with birth parents, no two stories are the same, and whenever I talk with adoptive parents, no two stories are the same. Now, there might be things that are unfamiliar, but that's really where I think, and we were going to talk about this with Hollie tonight too, but that's where I think it's important that whoever you choose to support you through your adoption journey recognizes that, because you don't want to just be popped into some square or round niche, you know. You want to fit a program and have it fit you back. Let's see here. I think Hollie is trying to figure out how to calm the baby down and give her attention back here. So let's see.
So, you want to point out who's who?
Yes, actually, this photo that's on the screen right now, I hope I get it right. Hollie may have to correct me. She told me. Okay, Hollie. So the picture that's on the screen right now, this is Elijah and Jordan, right?
Yes. Jordan is the rectangles and Elijah is the squares.
Okay. I love this because they're only 18 months apart, you said, right?
Yes.
Wow.
So you had an 18-month-old little toddler type, and then, I can see how you had your hands full already.
But you figure, you were just saying that you found out you were pregnant at about 6 weeks along, so he wasn't even 1 year old then.
No.
So that must have been incredibly overwhelming. So then before you left, you were starting to tell us, did you go home and tell your family right away that you were pregnant again, or did you kind of wait for that?
I waited. They didn't even know I was pregnant. They didn't even know until Jordan was born and adopted that I had a baby.
So you hid the whole pregnancy.
Yeah.
And that's I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that sometimes that's a concern. I know that I hear from women as they'll call us and they'll say, you know, do I have to tell my family that I'm pregnant? And the reality is it's up to you who you tell about your plans, who you tell about your pregnancy. So how did you handle that when you were hiding this pregnancy from everyone? How
Well,
did you do that?
it was fairly easy because it was wintertime, so it's, bulky clothes, big coats.
Yeah.
So it's kind of easy to hide from them. And besides, I was working all the time.
So you weren't
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
So, but was that hard?
Say it again?
Was that hard, knowing that you're pregnant and knowing that you just finished a work day and you might be extra exhausted, but you really don't have anyone to talk to about it or anyone to give you special treatment like you would normally have being pregnant, you know? How was that? Was that hard emotionally for you?
It's going in and out.
Oh, did you hear Kim's question?
No, what was it?
I was just saying, you know, I'm sure with your first pregnancy, you know, whenever you were tired, I mean, people understood, you know, well, you're pregnant. But if you're not sharing openly about the pregnancy, you know, say you worked a long day, you came home, you're exhausted, you have a child to take care of. Part of the reason why you're extra exhausted is because you are growing a human inside you, but you don't really have anyone to share about that with or any extra support like you normally would have, like to go get you something from the store. I mean, that must have been hard. I mean, how'd that feel for you?
It was. It was very difficult. And the only other person who knew was a really close friend of mine, and she was living in Atlanta at the time. So it was really difficult not having someone right next to me to be like, oh my goodness, I'm so tired from this job. And it almost made me want to tell everyone what was going on just so that I'd have some extra support to lean on. But I knew if I did that, I wouldn't be able to go through with my original plan, which was adoption.
So how old were you at that time when you got pregnant with Jordan?
I was 22, going on 23.
Uh-huh. So, you know, I mean, were you thinking in your head, gosh, you know, because there's kind of a stereotype, I think, which I know is totally false because of the women I talk with every day, but did you have any thoughts like, well, I'm already a mom, maybe I should try and make this work, or was that even more of an influence to thinking about adoption, the fact that you were already raising a child?
That was more of an influence because, like I said, I was doing it alone, and it was already difficult, and I knew that with a newborn infant, I would not only would it be harder, but I'd be out of a job because the way the job was set up, they don't have maternity leave for you unless you were actually a nurse. And I was working at a nursing home, but I was working as a dietary aide, and they don't have maternity leave for those positions. So I knew I'd be out of a job and possibly out of a home. So it wasn't an option.
So you were spending your days caring for other people and carrying a baby within you and not getting any extra like help yourself for your personal needs.
Exactly. And it really helped out that his dad, that Elijah's father, was taking him every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks with me and then 2 weeks with him. So those 2 weeks that I didn't have him, I was able to actually get some rest at night. But the 2 weeks that I did have him, it was difficult because we didn't have separate rooms. I was actually staying in one room with my son, and it was just difficult because he had to sleep with me, and he was a mover, and he wasn't potty trained, so I had to wake up at night to change him. So it really became difficult.
So
lack of sleep, that's a big factor.
How far along were you when you finally started thinking about adoption and researching it?
Even though I knew I wanted to go through with that, I was, I think, going on 7 months by the time I actually was able to call around and find out how to go about it.
So that's interesting. So you had been thinking about it for a long time, but it took until you were 7 months to actually start looking into it more seriously?
Yeah, because I didn't want it. It was a lot of conflicting emotions involved with that because
Yeah.
I'm like, well, if I give away my baby, then am I a bad mother? Because I'm keeping one child and I'm giving away the other one. Like I felt at some point it was unfair to both of them, and so it was really nerve-wracking, like trying to figure out what the best decision was because it really felt like a selfish decision at some point. Like, all right, I'm keeping one child and I'm giving away the other one just so I can live. Like, it made me feel awful until I actually started to pray about it and ask for guidance.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was saying while you were gone, that your faith played a big role in just leading you through that time too. I know it still does today.
Yeah.
But since you were hiding the pregnancy, which I don't think I realized because I knew you were hiding the adoption plan, but that's an even bigger secret, just to hide the pregnancy in general.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you remember what that was like, what your prayers were like at that time?
Yeah. It was just filled with emotion. I just remember the emotion. Like I would literally be in tears, like asking for an answer or a direction on which way I should go because I had no clue at the time about adoption, like about my plans for my future or any one of my child. It was so emotional. And that picture right there of Elijah, I was actually at my ultrasound appointment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it really, like I just remember praying really hard. God, show me the way. I send someone my way who's going to help me figure this out, who's going to give me the answers that I need, who's going to actually just, be like that angel because that's what I needed. I needed an angel because I was in a messed up situation. By the time I actually figured out I wanted to do adoption, I was homeless. He was my boyfriend at the time. We were living out of a car. It's just, and my son, he was with my mom. Well, he would be with my boyfriend's mom because we just didn't want to keep him in that kind of environment. And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back because I'm like, okay, I can't even keep this one in a stable home. What am I going to do when I have this baby? Like, what are we going to do, go to a homeless shelter? And at the rate things were going, being at a homeless shelter was not how I saw it going at all. Like having a newborn in a homeless shelter, like I couldn't do that to myself, to him, to Elijah. I knew I had to make the right decision, not just any decision, but the right decision for both of them.
Right.
And at that moment, I realized how selfless it would be to consider adoption.
See, and I'm glad you brought that up, Holly, because I hear that a lot where I hear this a lot. Women will call me and they will say, I've been thinking about adoption, but I feel like that's not taking responsibility for my baby. But then, like you said, it really is, because you were intentional every step of the way, not only for Jordan, but also to keep in mind what you wanted to continue and to be able to provide for Elijah.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you pointed that out because it is so mixed just in that time when you're trying to figure that all out.
Yeah.
And you said that you had your boyfriend at the time. Now, you actually ended up getting back together with Elijah's father while you were pregnant?
Yes. And he was that major support. He was that angel because he told me, I remember he told me that part of being a parent is being selfless. It's taking yourself completely out of the equation and thinking, what will be best for my child? right now at this moment? Like, what could I do to make their life better? And all I could think was go through with the adoption.
Mm.
So he really played a major role in that, and I'm so thankful to have him. So thankful that he was around at that time where everything was going on, because I was utterly clueless.
Right, and to have somebody to share that secret with too.
Yeah, because it was eating me up. I was going to work and I wasn't able to concentrate. You know, this baby moving inside of me, thinking, what am I going to do? And
So,
he really helped that.
yeah, which, I mean, speaks a lot to your relationship with each other, that he could understand that you're pregnant with a different man's baby, but that he wanted to help you rise up to be a good mom to both babies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm always curious, and I don't get to ask this very much, but how did the notion of adoption come to you? Did you hear about it from a doctor, or had you heard about open adoption before?
No. Actually, I was at the car with my mother around the time that I first found out that I was pregnant, and there's a billboard on one of our side streets. It's really huge, and it says, adoption is a choice.
Ah.
Yeah, and I just remember looking at that billboard and thinking, maybe it is something I should consider. But it wasn't the adoption agency I went with. It wasn't even one of the ones I called, but it gave me the idea. It actually planted the seed.
Yeah.
And I've seen that billboard a million times. Like, we always pass it, but for some reason, like, when I looked up, it was like, wow.
You needed it right then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what was that like as you got further in your pregnancy, which is pretty common? I just want to toss that out in case anyone was thinking, wow, she waited till 7 months. But my experience and what we see at Lifetime is that usually women aren't making an adoption decision until later in their pregnancy, usually the 3rd trimester.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important that we try and make sure people understand it is literally never too late for adoption, because you don't have to have everything figured out the same day you get the pregnancy test back. That there's a lot to consider. So you get to 7 months and you're thinking, I need a plan for this baby because my due date's around the corner. How, you told me earlier that you actually researched a few places before you found Lifetime.
Yeah.
How did you start your search? Was it mostly online or in the phone book?
Can you say that again? You kind of went out.
Yeah. How did you start your search? Was it mostly on the internet or was it by phone book?
I opened the phone book.
Cool.
And I went through the list of names of adoption places, and I kind of went down the line, and I called about 5 places, and I was getting frustrated because I wasn't getting the vibe that, okay, they're making me feel like this is the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally I called Lifetime. You guys were the last place I called.
So when you had gone down the list in the phone book, 4 or 5 places you called before you got to Lifetime, you said that there was a vibe. What did they say that gave you that, like, what was it that you just didn't feel it was clicking into place for you?
I didn't feel like what I was going through was mattering to the people that I called. And I know it sounds weird, but to me that's really big. Like, I needed whoever was on the other line to reassure me verbally that I was making the right decision, and it just felt like they were just answering questions. Like, they weren't there to actually, be of a help, but just answer questions. But when I called Lifetime and I got Amy on the phone, it was a different experience, because I really felt like I connected with her. Like, she understood, like, this was a major choice. It's not something that you take lightly. That's why it took me up until I got to 7 months to finally make the decision, this is what I want to do, because that's major. Like, you carry this human being in you for 9 months, and then you basically hand them over to someone else to raise. Like that's major to me,
Yeah.
especially having having my older son like that.
Right.
I just felt like if I did that, how empty would I feel for doing that? How bad of a person would I feel? So it took that long just to make that decision, just to make the phone call. Like my hands were shaking when I made the phone calls.
So, and you and I were talking earlier, and I thought this was such a good point. You didn't really know that much about open adoption, and then you started researching. What were some of the things you were surprised to learn about open adoption just as you were starting to dive in a little? Oh.
There's a little newborn cry.
Yeah, he got his shots today. That's why he's so sad.
Oh no.
Sensitive spot.
Yeah. Well, I was very surprised to learn that the birth mom does have a lot of choice in what happens. I was very surprised in that, because at first I was going to consider a closed adoption because I wasn't sure about how open adoption could be. Like, so when I actually did the research and I spoke to Amy about it and she explained it to me, it really did open my eyes that yeah. I'm sorry.
You're okay.
He doesn't know we're on a webinar, right?
No.
Newborns need what newborns need.
Okay.
Something must have happened over there. Things got quiet.
So, and Holly, I just wanted to share, we've had some very sweet comments come in from people listening to you right now, just talking about, how remarkable, how courageous, how strong you were to just even seek out, God's direction in this crisis. That I know I talk with a lot of women who they come from a background of having faith, but they feel like at the time when they're going through that unplanned pregnancy that maybe they feel like they can't turn to God, or maybe they can't turn to prayer. And I just admire that was something you leaned on, because it is so easy, I think, when you're going through a crisis to feel like the burden is completely on you to figure everything out, every tiny detail.
Yeah, and that's what it felt like. It until I actually prayed about it, it felt like I was in this by myself.
So then let's talk a little bit, because you did come to Lifetime, and you started researching adoptive families, and yeah,
it really was what helped everything.
The prayer.
It helped everything fall into place like it should have.
Yeah, I love hearing that. So then when you started learning, you said you were surprised to hear that a birth mother really got a say in so much of the process, really in every step. So then you started looking at adoptive parents. Before you chose Jordan's parents, did you have anything in mind that you were already looking for? I mean, we can see from this photo now Jordan is African American. So were you preferring a family that had the same race, or did that matter to you?
No, that didn't matter at all. As long as they were, from a good Christian background, a loving family. Like it didn't matter what race they were, because I was looking at couples from all different backgrounds.
And so what stood out to you? Because eventually you chose a family from California, Steve and Kim. I think I have a photo here, a recent photo here. What stood out about Steve and Kim that made you decide, you know what, I need to talk to them more about adopting my baby?
To be honest, I have no idea. I just kept coming back to their profile. Like, I would go through the profiles and, flip through them, and I just kept coming back to Kim and Steve. So I prayed on it a little more, and then I called Amy and asked her to connect us. And once I spoke to them, and Kim is just, she is the sweetest person. And once I spoke to her and Steve, I knew why I kept coming back to them. That's why I really believe that, God let this, like he played a major role in this because of how things happen.
That's amazing. So I think it's great to hear you say that, because like you said a few minutes ago that you had actually thought you wanted a closed adoption.
Yeah.
But then you started getting to know them. I mean, now when you look back, do you remember the reasons that you were thinking a closed adoption would be better?
Yeah, I thought that it would be better for me to not know. I thought that I could deal with, not knowing what his name was or where he was, who he was with. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized how that just didn't fit for me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know. I needed to know just to make sure that he was okay and the family he was with, he was happy. And when he started growing up and I got the first photos of him smiling like that, I was like, okay, I made the right decision in open adoption and with the family that I chose. And it just made the idea of the open adoption that much greater to me, because it really does like calm a part of your soul knowing that
I
your
love
child is
that.
okay.
I love that. You just said it calms a part of your soul to know that your child is living like that. I hope that resonated with everyone who's listening right now, that, even if you decide adoption is not for you, that you just even better understand how open adoption can bless, all sides, because I know that you have an ongoing relationship with Kim and Steve, and that you told me earlier today it's actually like you guys are friends.
Yeah.
I mean, does that surprise you 4 years later here to look back and think, wow, I never knew who these people were, and now they're my friends in my life?
Yeah, it does. Because we went from strangers to having this beautiful boy in common, and from there developing a bond that I never knew I could have with people like that.
So how often do you guys
It's
keep
great.
in touch?
Well, we email ever so often, like every few times a month, but that's my choice. I choose to, give them as much space as possible because I already know he's okay. So every once in a while, every blue moon, when I feel like I want to see how he's doing, I'll email her, or she'll email me out of the blue. So it's really, it's been good being able to just do that. At some point in the beginning, I even had their home and cell phone numbers. I still do, but I don't call anymore. But I used to call like once a week to check on him and see how he was doing. And my son, my oldest son, he sent Jordan a Valentine, and like Jordan loved it. So like we keep in touch. And it's great. We actually plan on going out there.
You and your husband and your boys are going to go out and visit them?
Yeah.
Great. And
Yeah.
so you haven't visited with them, until this year, right?
Right.
Okay. And was that more on your decision too? Was like, I don't want that right now?
Yeah, I just wanted him to grow up. I didn't want to interfere. I wanted life for him to be as normal as possible, especially being so young. I know kids are smart, but I didn't want to, warp his understanding of what was going on.
So since Jordan's 4, he just turned 4, right?
He'll be 4 April 21st.
Oh, okay, so he's about to turn 4. So, and then Elijah is 5.5-ish?
Yeah, he's going to be 6 in August 10th.
Okay, so these boys are kind of at an age where they start to understand a little bit more of the world. Do you think they understand this whole adoption arrangement? Like, how much do you talk to Elijah about Jordan and adoption?
Well, Elijah, he always knew. He
Mm-hmm.
knew there was a baby, and then he knew that mommy had a baby in her tummy, and then mommy didn't come home with the baby.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of had to explain as much as I could to a 2-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't really get that Jordan was his brother, but not living with us until he was about 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was just, after he learned he had a brother, he was just telling everybody, my brother Jordan is in California, and we're going to go visit him. And I talked to him. he loves the idea of having a brother in California. Like, he understands that. He just doesn't understand the whole idea of what adoption is.
Right.
I don't really expect him to so young, but
No. Yeah.
it's something that I would consistently talk to him about so that he knows, what happened and why it happened.
Which is a good point because, some people are surprised to find out that a lot of women who choose adoption often are already raising a child, and so sometimes their concern is, what do I tell my child or my children about adoption and why this baby's not coming home with us? So what would you tell women who want to know, well, how do I talk to my toddler or my school-age child about what I'm doing for this baby inside of my belly?
Well, one thing, kids aren't stupid, so
Mm-hmm.
don't try to, manipulate it or, even lie. Never do that. You just tell them straight up. You have a sibling who's not going to stay with us, but he's still your sibling, and, I love you, and I love your brother or sister, and this is just something that's for the best right now. Let them know that, later on they will meet, they will see each other. Like, give them hope because it is going to happen. Kids who are adopted, they want to know. They want to know, especially from the people that I've met. Like, they do go back and try to find the birth families and find out if they have brothers and sisters, because some of them grow up only children, and they want to know if they have a sibling or two.
Yeah.
So I've always just been honest with him and let him know that, Jordan's not coming home. He doesn't stay with us, but we will go visit. He is your brother, and it's okay to love him even from afar. It's okay to want to talk to him. It's okay to want to send him stuff because he wants to send him Christmas presents and birthday presents.
Mm-hmm.
So I let him pick out the Valentine, and we're gonna go pick out a birthday present and a card so he can sign it and send it to him. Like, and in some ways, open adoption allows not just you but your children to be a part of their life as well, which is for me one of the best things because I never wanted it to be a secret from my children.
So
Has he asked anything now that you have baby Ethan? Has he asked anything about, is baby Ethan going to live with us since he knows now that adoption? What are his thoughts there?
He already knew that Ethan was coming to live with us. He asked for a brother ever since Jordan was born. No, actually he wanted a sister. But he got a brother.
Oh, no.
And he's been asking for a sibling ever since Jordan was born. So when this pregnancy happened, he knew, okay, this baby's coming home with me.
right, and you were married to his father at that point, because you've been married a few years now, right?
Yeah, it'll be 4 years in May.
Okay, so I mean, a lot has happened in just a short period of time for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I mean, when you look back, I think when you're facing such an important or big life decision as you went through with Jordan, and just also looking at how your life was with Elijah and living couch to couch, and, you were working, but you were hanging on to that job tight because you knew that it'd be pretty hard without it. And now you look at where you are. Sometimes I think it gets easy to feel like my life is always going to be hard. It's always going to be like this. And now you look back and you've become married. You've had a third baby now that you're raising 2 at home.
Yeah.
Do you ever, is there ever a point where you look and think, well, if I had known it was going to go this way, then maybe I wouldn't have chosen adoption for Jordan?
No. No, I don't think that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that what happened at the moment that adoption was a choice happened for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that Jordan was never mine.
Mm-hmm.
He's my son, but he was never for me to parent. I'm your son.
Yes.
Go ahead, sit down. Yeah, I just feel like everything happened the way it was meant to, because we didn't actually get on our feet until about maybe 2 years ago. To get to the point where having another child wouldn't be so difficult.
Right.
It's still hard, but it's not as difficult as it would have been to raise Jordan. So I believe that situation came exactly when it was supposed to. Everything happened the way it was supposed to.
And I was just thinking, too, that you guys are in Ohio. It's cold in Ohio. You were in your car in the spring, pregnant in Ohio.
Yeah.
That's remarkable.
We didn't get an apartment until a month before Jordan was born.
Yeah.
A month before. And
so
it was still difficult.
How involved did you have Steve and Kim through your pregnancy? We had a question come in that someone wanted to know, did you want them at the hospital? What was that like when he was born?
Oh, yeah, I did. The idea of them being there when their son was born, it was beautiful to me. I thought of it as when my son was born and me and Elijah's dad were together, like it created a bond instantly between all 3 of us. And I really wanted them to be there to hold him, to be the first ones to hold him and stuff. And actually, I didn't name him. They did before he was even born. Like, as soon as I found out he was a boy, I told them, and I asked them what name they picked out. And I know that the mom can name the child, and then on the adoption birth certificate, they do a different name, and then the original one is sealed. But I just decided that it would be better to allow them to do it all as if they were going through the pregnancy and the birth.
Yeah.
Like, even at the hospital, what was so wonderful about what happened at the hospital, from the beginning, my doctor knew what was going on. So all the nursing staff were informed that this was for an adoption. And a couple of the nurses who were working with me were adopted. And it was just a beautiful experience. Like, they really got on board with it. When Kim and Steve came, I gave her the other bracelet to get into the nursery, and they gave them a room right across the hall from mine, so that they could be at the hospital with their new son, and to learn about child care and how to feed him and hold him and stuff.
All the first parent stuff. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, them being there for all of that, to get to experience that, it was important to me that happened for them, because I know for me, when it happened for me, it was like one of the greatest experiences I've ever had.
And you and I were talking earlier. I just love that you were being tended to by nurses who were personally adopted.
Adopted, yeah.
And you and I were talking earlier, because chances are good that those women who were nursing you back to health were probably of the generation when open adoption wasn't as common.
Yeah.
And so was it kind of unusual to them to realize that this baby's going to start out knowing who his family is and who his birth family is?
No, actually, they loved it.
Mm-hmm.
They loved the idea that adoption had come along so much that we could be at the point where we were, where the parents who were adopting this beautiful boy were right there in the hospital with the birth mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were very accommodating. Even the like, cause that's really not something that they do, because of protocol. They don't just have people staying in the hospitals
Mm-hmm.
with the birth mom. So we actually had to get permission from the chief of staff, and he was fine with it. Like he thought it was a great thing, and everybody was really on board, and it was beautiful. Like they were so impressed that adoption had come along so far that it could be like that.
Well, and you mentioned earlier, too, that it was almost like even more affirmation that you were making the right choice.
Yeah, like because I was speaking with the ladies who were adopted,
Mm-hmm.
and they were telling me how adoption was the best thing that their birth moms could have ever done for them, and how they were so grateful to her and happy that she had made the decision because it allowed them to have a better life.
Mm.
And it was confirmation that this was the right decision. And when everything was happening, from the birth to signing the papers, I felt at peace knowing that I was making the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wasn't sad, I wasn't upset, I wasn't second guessing the decision. I did have a moment where I did feel extreme sadness, like my baby's not here,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't last long because I knew what I did for him.
Mm-hmm.
It would come back with a great result.
So, and that was a question actually that just came into my email. It was actually from a pregnant woman. She's thinking about adoption, and she said, what was that like? You finally see him born. Did you have any moments of wondering, well, maybe we can
I'm
make
sorry,
this work?
Out.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
What was the question?
well, we had a question come in just now from a pregnant woman who's thinking about adoption, and she wanted to know, what was that like, though? Was it harder to keep moving forward once you saw him, once he was born?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it just more like, no, he's here now, and I just continue to see that this is the right choice?
Well, when he was born,
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
There was no question. It's really something that you have to really think about because it is such a major decision. It's not something that you should take lightly. So if you do have any kind of second thoughts about it, I really think that even if you don't have a strong faith, you should pray about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the time, I wasn't on great speaking terms with my Savior. so even though that was the case, I knew I had to pray about it because I was having all these questions in my head about if this was the right decision and would I regret it later. I know.
Yeah. So what would you tell a woman who, maybe she's already placed her baby and she feels that it's the right decision, but she's going through that moment like you talked about where you were missing him? What do you tell women who understand that there's going to be a loss, there's going to be some grieving?
Oh yeah, what you do is, well, what I did
Mm-hmm.
was I would I would call her. I would call Kim. And I'd say, I'm kind of missing Jordan.
Mhm.
I'm not second guessing it, but I am missing him, and I just want to know how he's doing. And like she would sit and talk to me. Like it was one time I called her, and she was driving, and she actually pulled over to talk to me and talk me through it. That's why I believe it's really important to build a relationship with the adoptive mother and an open adoption. That way, when those moments happen, you can just talk to her about it, and it will, to me, build that bond even more, because to do that, there has to be a trust. Like, you're trusting her with your baby and your feelings about the situation. And that's huge, because this person went from a stranger to the mother of your child. So there has to be a trust there. And having that, it really does help. Because I would just call Kim every time I miss him, or I would call a friend and say, I'm sad today. I really miss Jordan. And like she would just reassure me, you make the right decision. He's happy. Like, you can see it in the pictures, and the pictures helped. There's going to be moments, and it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're a bad mom. It doesn't mean that you made the wrong decision. It just means that you're human, and that you're dealing with a loss. That's what it means. We always miss the people who were once there and are not, no matter how long. You carried this baby for 9 months, there's going to be a feeling of loss. Well, you can just eat like that.
We had a good question that came in as you were talking about that, and I'm going to kind of spin this because I think I know what they're getting at, but I just want to make it clear. But I love what you said, that was part of why you were glad to have that connection with them too, was because they were understanding. And this question that came in said, what do you recommend adoptive parents do to make that transition easier? And I think you already said it, which is, be available. Don't just shut it down. Let the relationship continue.
Yeah, because that was really one of the things that I was afraid of. That after everything was said and done and the papers were signed, that it would end. And I was really afraid of that. But it didn't. Like, we stayed in contact through phone in the beginning, and 4 years later, we're still in contact through email. And she asks about the kids, and she asks about what's going on with me, and she's really just been amazing these last 4 years. And when you keep that's the point of open adoption. You're being open.
Right.
When you keep that, it really does, over the years, put the birth mother at ease, because it doesn't stop hurting. it goes away a little bit, but you still look at the pictures like, oh, I miss my baby. So, it's really important that you keep that open communication, and that we've done that, and it's made me feel completely secure in my decision from day one.
And do you think Kim in particular understands what she's done for you by being open? Like, do you think she understands how much that helps you?
Yeah, and I've told her that if it wasn't for her being so understanding to me, needing to see that he's okay and to talk about him with her, if it wasn't for that, then I would have regrets.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you shared something earlier too. I don't want to keep you from your boys too long, but you told me earlier, which I just wanted to bring this back up, because you said through getting to know each other before the adoption not only allowed you to get to know each other and like each other, but to understand how each other felt about what was going on.
Yeah.
And I wanted to share that with the audience because I think sometimes it can seem like maybe an open adoption is just about like, oh, well, do I like them? Do I feel okay with them adopting my child? But it's beyond that, because the two of you came together to start this little boy's story, and
Yeah.
that you had to understand where each of you were coming from, and that I know one of the things you liked about them was that, and this isn't true for all women, so I don't want families with kids to hear this and get panicked, but that one of the things you liked was that he was going to be their only child, their firstborn, and get a lot of attention.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because I grew up in a family of 6, and I was the baby.
Mm-hmm.
So like I know what it's like to have that split attention,
Mm-hmm.
and I really just wanted him to be the only,
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted him to be so spoiled with love that when it came time for him to find out his story, that he'd be okay with that because he was loved endlessly. And I know he would get that in a family with multiple children, but there's just something different about being the only child. And I know that because I've spoken to only children, and Elijah being the only child here, like I just know how that is to have the undivided attention of your parents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I really wanted that for him to experience that, and he gets that.
Mm-hmm. We had a question come in. This is a good question. What do you want, or what do you like for Jordan to call you? Does he call you Holly? Does he call you a nickname, or?
I don't know what he calls me.
Oh.
but when we meet, I would like him to call me Holly.
Uh-huh.
Because and if he has a nickname that he wants to call me, that's fine.
Because he's still little, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever spoken with him on the phone, or is it usually just Kim?
It's usually just Kim because, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to speak with him until I speak with him in person.
Mm-hmm.
I really just want to talk to him in person.
Well, we keep getting the same comment keeps coming through, that you are just amazing, and I think it's just that you're willing to share and be honest about the whole experience, and to just speak from your heart and your memory. I'm so grateful you could do that for all of us tonight, Holly. Let me see
Thank you for
here.
having me. I really do appreciate this. This is therapeutic.
Oh,
It really is.
did you ever? I mean, because some women that I've helped, they don't always want to go, and talk with a counselor, or they don't want to talk with other women who've chosen adoption, but then other women do. Did you ever go through a phase where you got some grief counseling?
Yeah, I did. I saw a therapist for a couple months.
Uh-huh.
Because I started having the feelings of maybe I robbed my older son of a sibling. It was more so about him than Jordan at the time. And when I went to the counselor, she told me that I did what any great parent would do, which was think of what was best for my children. And that I shouldn't feel bad about it, I shouldn't feel shame, and I shouldn't let anyone else make me feel that way. And it really helped, because I was starting to feel like, well, maybe I didn't do all that I could do. But the truth of the matter is, I did everything I could do. And it wasn't enough for the situation at the time. And going to therapy, it's nothing wrong with that. If you feel like you're to the point where you need someone to talk to, and family or friends just won't understand, there's nothing wrong with going to a counselor. It's an unbiased point of view, and
exactly.
It's objective, and they're going to tell you the truth.
Right, and they're going to help you find a constructive way to keep moving.
Exactly, and she suggested I write letters to Jordan.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I did. I wrote letters to him, and I have them saved for when he's older. I even wrote him a letter. I wrote Kim and Steve a letter and Jordan a letter that I gave to them at the hospital, letting them know how
Oh,
much I
wow.
appreciate what they were doing,
Mm-hmm.
because they weren't just, adopting a child. They were taking on the responsibility of another life, a life that, was outside of what they created,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I really felt grateful to them for that. That's a big thing.
You and I were talking earlier just a little bit about what adoption means to you, and I know that there's so much more to your story that I think we could even talk about to just help, talking about how eventually you told your family or how you see adoption in the future. But what's on your heart that as you've learned about open adoption and then lived with it, that you've had different perspectives, different opinions from people that find out about your plan, but what do you really want people to know about open adoption from your point of view, or that you think everyone should know? How would you want the people who are joining us tonight to just know a nugget from you?
I would say never assume anything.
Mm-hmm.
Never assume, because the thing about open adoption is you can actually put your fears out there about how you feel and what's going on with you. You can be open. That I know that about open adoption, that whatever family you went with, you can be open with them about how you feel, and in turn, you could ask the same of them. That's one of the great things about it. It's about getting not just how you feel out there, but how they feel out there, and connecting with another family and building a lifelong bond so that your child can be comfortable. And I didn't know that. So I would say research and ask questions. Ask as many questions as you can, because it's all about how you feel and you being comfortable with the decision that you make. Because in the end, it's something you have to live with and you have to deal with, no one else. So always feel comfortable in the decision that you're making.
That's really good advice, I think, for potential birth parents and adoptive parents, is that you've got to know that you're in or you're out. Well, thank you so much. Kim, did you have any questions come in that you wanted to add?
No, I think that she said it the best anyone could have,
She really did.
Hollie, you certainly have your hands full. You just delivered a baby yourself 3 weeks ago. You have such a beautiful heart and great words.
Thank you.
People are commenting what a great speaker you are and how you're speaking from your heart, and we all appreciate that. So absolutely not, Lydia. I have nothing else to add.
Well, I just wanted to thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Hollie. And if any of you have questions or feedback from tonight's call, or if you're thinking, gosh, I really could use more information because I'm just not sure that I understand everything that I should right now as I make a decision or as I make a plan while I wait to adopt, or wherever you're at in needing support or information, that we have answers for you, and we're happy to just be that resource so that you can decide if adoption is part of your future. So you can call us 1-800-923-6784, or go to our main website, which is lifetimeadoption.com. And you're welcome to email me with any feedback or questions, and I'll help you get the answers that you might need. So my email address is Libby, Libby, @lifetimeadoption.com. And I will go ahead and wish all of you a great Easter weekend, that you have a safe and happy holiday, and that as spring comes in, that there's only good things on the horizon for you, and clarity about what you're seeking for your answers in your future. And Hollie, thank you again, and we will
Thank you for having me.
we'll talk with you again soon.
All right.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night.